right, good morning, St. and Nevis, and welcome to another edition of Inside the News right here on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. It's Saturday, April 16, 2022. And today we have in studio on the panel with us today, social commentator Dwyer Astefan and radio personality Maurice Ike Flanders. And today we will be weighing in on the recent developments coming out of Team Unity, of course, with their recent meeting on Thursday of this week, and they had one last week, Monday as well. And of course, many of you have been tuned into social media, radio, all over the World Wide Web, following the politics here in St. Kitts and Nevis and all that has been happening. And just like us here in the country who have been following, of course, there has been a lot of regional attention with what's going on here. So today we want to have a conversation on what has taken place over the past few, let me say, weeks, because you guys listened to the PAM convention, the PLP convention. So for the most part, I think people are very much aware of what is going on. Good morning, guys, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation for us to have this discussion. Ike?
Hey, blessed morning, Mr. Cornelius. Good morning to all those who are locked on and listening and viewing to WINNFM. I want to thank you for the invitation, and I'm hoping that I could add whatever little 2 cents I can in my capacity as a radio host and talk show host and social commentator. I realize you gave Dwyer the title, but you refused to give it to me, but that's okay. I'll work a little harder for it. All right, thanks, man.
Okay, Dwyer?
It's an honor to be sharing the microphone with the well-known social commentator and MC and DJ, and looked up to personality in the country as somebody who speaks his mind and thinks before he speaks. So I'm happy to be here with Ike. And thank you for the invitation, Mr. Cornelius, to share perspectives and hopefully to get us closer to truth and to being a better country, even out of this little conversation that we're having here.
Mm-hmm. All right, and again, thank you guys so much. So let's head right into what we want to talk about today. Now, yes, the developments in Team Unity and all that has been going on. I'm pretty sure you guys listened to the Prime Minister's address, I think it was Thursday night, and that of the Deputy Prime Minister earlier that same evening. And they were basically telling us what transpired in the meeting, and that, based on what I've heard, it seems as if that there wasn't, a consensus, and people came out of the meeting not seeing some of the demands met. But prior to that, of course, we heard the comments and suggestions coming from the members of Team Unity, from all PAM, CCM, and PLP, and of course at the PAM convention, the PLP convention. What would you describe what is happening now as, if you have to give it one word or 2 words? What would you describe this as? Well, that is what's going on in Team Unity right now. Ike?
2 words. I don't think I could use 2 words. But what I will say, though, is that when Team Unity came into being, I'm not the kind of person who looks at things from an emotional standpoint. As Dwyer said, I think from a different perspective before I make some pronouncement. And I knew from the onset that this thing would not last. Because the only thing that they had in common coming together was Douglas. And once that was out of the way, it was only a matter of time before the different ideologies and the difference in what they want politically would come to the surface. And the utterances from both the PAM fraction and the CCM fraction made that abundantly clear, because they're the ones who said it. We were saying it, and they were pushing back and saying, no, we want to mash up Team Unity. But Team Unity was already mashed up before it started. Now, Dwyer was there from the inception. And while I understood what the whole thrust was about back then, the formation of Team Unity, what the marriage itself, the players in the marriage itself would not see what they had envisioned playing out. Because 7 years later, these fractions are arguing over 2 key points, in my humble estimation. And those key points are the same things that they came to power on. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis, both home and abroad, agreed with them that we needed to do things a little differently in St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of our transparency, our integrity in public life, our legislation, our electorate, the powers of the Prime Minister, and the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. So, Pam is of the opinion right now that the Prime Minister doesn't seem to want to relinquish power of the Prime Minister seat. So, that's one thing. Remember, it was said back then that Douglas was there too long, and he was 10 man in one, and an article was written by one of our learned QCs that the powers of the Prime Minister needs to be checked. But the only way you could check that is to change it in the Constitution. And I'm sure Dwyer would agree because he has the Constitution. I have mine on my desk at work that I do read every now and again. Those powers are given to him by the Constitution. So in order to check his power, you have to put some constitutional amendments in place to do that. Now, 7 years later, and the other point is the CBI money. How the money is spent, how the money is shared. Those are the 2 key points. After 7 years, they have not resolved those issues that they came to power on. Now, neither Mark Brantley nor Sean Richards, as leader of 2 different parties, have put forward motions in the House to change these things. When they brought the integrity in public life and the moves that they made with the PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, they basically took the teeth out of it. And all of them agreed that it was the right thing to do. All of them stood up in Parliament and said, this is the way we need to go. The only thing you can ask is, what's the gentleman's title?
Director of Audit.
Director of Audit. Just that report alone. You can't ask any other civil service, any other question about anything that goes on in government. Just that one report. And all of them stood up and agreed. At no time did Lindsey Grant say, no, this ain't right. At no time did Mark Brantley say, no, this ain't right as a lawyer, because if you can't question witnesses, how could you prove a case? How you could get to the bottom of anything without evidence? So he agreed. Sean Richards, the same thing, the Deputy Prime Minister. He agreed that the way in which the PAC was done was right. Then you had the integrity in public life. Yes, it came to Parliament. I think it was passed, if my memory serves me correctly. But the mechanism by which it could efficiently operate was not put in place. The chairperson of that commission, the first one, resigned. And I think the reasons were lack of financial support. So the government didn't lend any support at all to the functioning of that important piece of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Machinery.
Machinery, there you go. Thank you, sir. So they did not want to see any integrity in public life. Then you had the 2 terms for the Prime Minister. How did that fare in Parliament? They blame the opposition for not lending it support. But you have a supermajority in the House of Parliament. Right. You don't need the opposition support to pass any piece of legislation, reform it, anything you want to do with it, you can, because you have the numbers. And they all knew this. But at the time, we thought that the opposition didn't want it. But that's not the opposition was putting forward. You're the one who put it forward. And you did nothing with it. And so now everything that we suggested should have been done, they are now confirming that over the 7-year period that they were together, nothing, absolutely nothing was done. Recently, I saw a quote from the Deputy Prime Minister that they have to reignite the good governance agenda. After 7 years, you have to reignite it? So what were you doing for the past 7 years? Nothing at all? I mean, every move that you made showed the country that you were not interested in good governance. And then you had the scandals that came out, the herpes, the this, the that, and no special attention was given to it. You couldn't ask anybody a question. Recently, you heard Lindsey Grant, the tourism minister, the Honorable, said that he doesn't know anything about the peace program. So you're telling me that you stood up in Parliament knowing fully well that you have no information about a program that is going to see $75 million of taxpayers' money being allocated, and you have no idea what's going on with that program? But you want us now, the people who support the People's Action Movement and the rest of the country, to have some sympathy for you. But you were in there. That is your job. That's what the people voted for you to go to Parliament and to Cabinet to do, to put things in place so that our politics, our country would be in better hands than it was in, because you said Labour was bad for the country, Douglas was bad for the country. The CBI program. So you're trying to tell me that we now have to ask the World Bank how to spend we money? Well, the World Bank will count more than our Prime Minister, who is a PhD in accounting? Well, the World Bank know that our Prime Minister doesn't know? Or Mark Brantley? Or anybody, the Financial Secretary? What does the World Bank know that we don't know in terms of how we share our money? And he keeps going back to the Constitution that the Premier is trying to avoid. They said that they made an agreement before God and man on the steps of the courthouse in Nevis. Yeah, but you can't hold our Prime Minister to any contract. How could you do that? That means our Prime Minister would be susceptible to bribes and all these kind of things if you could hold him to a contract that he made outside of the office. And how could...
Basically private citizens.
Good. So then how could a piece of agreement that he signed before he was Prime Minister now trumps what the Constitution says that he is guided by? We then challenge it, go to court. Mark Brantley love to go to court, so why he ain't carry this one to court yet?
Based on your take, EK, I think many would agree that you can't use just two words to describe
You can't.
what's going on
It's
in
a
Team
hot...
Unity right
well,
now.
let me take that back. I can use two words. It's a hot mess. That's two words, right?
Right.
Okay, good. There you go.
Dwyer, can I get your take on how would you describe what's happening in Team Unity right now?
Well, while Ike was saying at the beginning that couldn't do it in two words, I did get the two words, hot mess, which is what it is. Let me tell you how this thing has deteriorated. A gentleman on the street this week stopped me. He said, Dwyer, this Charlestown Accord thing, how this thing go? So I told him to the best of my knowledge how it was structured and so forth. He said, but that ain't a Charlestown Accord. I said, what it is? He said, it's a Charlestown accordion. Because, like an accordion, you're pushing and you pull out, He says, this it's an accordion. Nobody's taking it seriously, or the people who should. Now, of course, he didn't mean Mr. Brantley and the CCM. I don't think he meant the PAM people. But while the Charlestown Accord and the Treaty of National Unity were not legally binding instruments, from the time they were signed, they were politically binding instruments. And they should have been, in my opinion, formalized by being entered into the record of the Cabinet of the Federation, and also being entered into the record of the Parliament in the form of resolutions adopting those two documents.
Right.
I think that ought to have been done. And perhaps it was an oversight that it wasn't done, because there are certainly lawyers and other bright persons in and around the government. Or people said, well, we don't have to do that because we're going to operate on trust. Well, guess what happens? They have now found out, if not before, that trust doesn't have much currency in those circles, because they use it themselves, distrust. the Deputy Prime Minister speaks about the widening gap, not being able to resolve the issues. And as he does those things and he speaks, and this thing is in the open now, there's no subtlety to it. And this is a brawl in the middle of Front Street. It's a brawl in the middle of Front Street. And while he is doing that, and one can understand his frustration, the Prime Minister, with the references to the World Bank, and I share Ike's position on this, that's only a device, in my opinion, to run the clock and to buy time. Because I think that strategically he believes that the more time he has, the stronger he can make his own PLP hand. And the weaker, certainly Pam, and from his perspective, he would hope Labour as well be. And he might find himself in a position where he can get sufficient seats to be a significant player in the outcome of an election. So in my view, he's buying for time. The meeting had been scheduled for, I think, a Wednesday a few weeks ago. Mr. Amri, rest his soul, passed. It had been rescheduled for the Monday. Mr. Amri passed. They said, well, we can't do it because, Mr. Amri died. But they were doing other things. And I believe that was an excuse. And then the Wednesday, to nobody's surprise, I certainly wasn't surprised, no resolution because Mr. Harris is not going to yield up those ministries. And he said, basically, I'll paraphrase him, he's not going to allow the constitutional prerogative of the prime ministership to be challenged, to be diminished. In other words, and that's how the constitutions operate, and that's how the governments operate. The Prime Minister appoints and disappoints members to and from cabinet. And while the Charlestown Accord speaks to consultation before these decisions are made, and he can say, yes, I sit down and consult with you, but after the consultation, I make the decisions, which is exactly what is happening. And it is not wrong that the Prime Minister be the one who makes the decisions, because he, or in the case of a female, if we do have a female Prime Minister, would be the one constitutionally empowered to appoint or disappoint cabinet members. But in my view, he's using that to show to his supporters that, look, I am the strong man here, and they're going to come and blow all the noise and so forth. It's not going to happen. Now, I want to touch on something. So it's a mess, and it's not going to get any better. And in my view, any attempt to put a coat of paint on it, to give the impression that, well, we have settled these things, and in the interest of stability, and the Prime Minister himself spoke about stability because he knows that the country right now administratively is not stable. He knows that investors, and not just investors, but foreign governments within the region and beyond will look at St. Kitts with a cock eye and wait and hope that we get our matters straightened out before they can deal with us in the normal way. Now, Ike mentioned that the Charlestown Accord is not the same, and I'm paraphrasing you, Ike, if I'm wrong, just correct me, is not the same as the revenue sharing provision in the Constitution. It is not the same. But the revenue sharing provision speaks only to taxable revenue, tax. The Charlestown Accord, Mr. Brantley and his colleagues realized that the CBI revenue was non-tax revenue. And I believe this is why they included it in the Charlestown Accord, so that they will get the benefit of the Section 110 of the Constitution, which deals with tax revenue,
Right.
and also the benefit of the Charlestown Accord, which in my opinion ought to have been formalized, as I said, but never was. So they're two different things, really. And I don't think that Mr. Harris really should say, or have his person say, his surrogate say, well, all you can't force nothing in it because the Constitution don't say this and say that. You had a deal. Make the deal become fruitful. Honor the deal as best you can. And I don't know if I said it before, but I will agree with Liket as well. We don't need no World Bank to tell us how to add up and subtract. We don't need that. That's a joke. That's an insult to our intelligence. It's an insult. So that's it for my first over from the southern end.
We'll stick a pin, we'll take a break, and we'll come back. You're listening to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. For those of you who have just tuned in, we have here in studio with us Dwyer Astafan and Ike, and we're commenting on the developments in Team Unity. Stick and stay, we'll be right back.
Low on cash? Get exactly what you want this Easter with a loan of up to $50,000 cash from TDC Financial Services Limited. Consolidation? No problem. Renovations? No problem. Shopping? No problem. Get exactly what you want this Easter at TDC Financial Services Limited, where money is made easy.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Welcome back to Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. For those of you who are just joining us, we have in studio Dwyer Astafan and Maurice Ike Flanders, and we're commenting on the developments in Team Unity and all that has been happening over the past few weeks. Now, Dwyer and Ike have given their take on what is happening with Team Unity, and many of you, I think, would agree that what is happening now is quite unfortunate. You would recall that in 2015, what we were told as the electorate was that, well, it will be a new beginning for us in terms of politics in St. Kitts and Nevis, and in terms of the old style of politics, that will be gone, and we'll see, something fresh, something new, a fresh start, a new beginning for our politics here in St. Kitts and Nevis. However, based on what we've seen, we've heard from the members of Team Unity, you cannot deny that that is not the case. Because, of course, you guys said it earlier, where it was being said that all is not well with the coalition. Well, that has since been confirmed. Not by me, not by yourself, Ike, not by Mr. Astafan, but by the members of the coalition. I think, for the most part, people in St. Kitts and Nevis, regardless of their political affiliation, are hoping that all of this can come to an end and that the leaders of Team Unity, PAM, CCM, PLP, can come to a resolution and say, hey, we are going to fix this, or we're going to go to the polls and allow the people to decide. Some are of the view that St. Kitts and Nevis is not ready for an election just after 2 years. Others are of the view that this cannot be fixed, and the only thing that can fix it is a general election. Let's continue this conversation right here on Inside the News. I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. Now, the big question is that, can all of this be fixed? Based on what has been said by the members of the coalition, basically combating each other publicly of being greedy, of not living up to promises made, keeping secrets from each other. Basically a marriage where, husband and wife not get on and things not going good. Based on what, you have seen, you have heard, do you think that this can be fixed with meetings and discussions, even if demands are made, such as the CBI revenue fair share, good governance agenda, and those other things that were promised in the Charlestown Accord? Ige?
I don't share Dwyer's take on the whole Charlestown Accord. Well, not fully. But to me, the proof is in the eating of the pudding. And I have observed for a very long time the way in which politicians go about their business. They throw you a little bit of crumbs, give you some mediocrity, give you some play on words, make you feel like something doing, but really and truly nothing doing. At all is nothing doing. Look at the state of affairs of our country. And you could play on people's emotion when they are unsuspecting. Information is readily available, but in terms of the dissemination in St. Kitts and Nevis, you don't really get that. And you just coming into journalism, I'm sure you have recognized that. It is as though if you give St. Kitts people information, like you're giving them rat poison. You go into a press conference with a minister, you ask a certain question to get a specific answer, and they carry you down Church Street, bring you back up 4th Street, then they carry you across Kayan Street. By the time they done come back down West Independence Street, you forget where you ask them. You understand? And this is a style for it's like all of them. That's what they do. They play on your emotions because they feel as though you don't know how things work. And anybody who try to explain to the quote-unquote common man how things work, they fear you and they dread you. Right? So, let's go to it. You had an agreement that this is what you're going to go into an arrangement with. Right? And as you rightfully said, they should have formalized it. What has taken place in our parliament for the past 7 years? And I could only be myself and describe things how I see it in my own language. Garbage. Not one piece of ground-moving, revolutionary piece of legislation has been brought to a parliament since Team Unity has been in government. Name me one that really is going to transform the lives of people in St. Kitts and Nevis. You understand? All the archaic white people laws that we still have here. Just this morning, somebody brought to my attention that, so I can't vote until I'm 18, but if I'm 16, I could give consent to have sexual relations?
I got the same thing as well.
And go jail.
And go jail?
Somebody brought the same thing to
Ridiculous.
To me this morning.
That law is steeped in pedophilia. You understand? And who you know love pedophilia? Anyway, that's a different conversation. But let's go to the crux of the matter. Where is the legislation, the motions to fix all these things that they said were wrong? Not one of them move a motion. And now you have this stalemate where the leader of PAM and the leader of CCM literally blasting our prime minister in public forums. Where is the motion of confidence? Dwyer was there when the motion of confidence for Douglas was in the bench, so what, 2 years? Back then?
Yeah,
2 years.
2 years.
All right? So where's the motion of no confidence against Dr. Harris? Because he's doing basically the exact same things, or even a little bit worse than what they accused Douglas of doing with the CBI money, selling it like black pudding on a Saturday or a Friday, 1 out of the 2. Not giving Nevis what is rightfully theirs. And running the cabinet like his own personal business from his phone. So everything that they accused Douglas of then, Dr. Harris is guilty of the same thing based on their admission, not mine, not yours, their admission. So where is the motion of confidence? How come Matt Brantley ain't filed one yet? He filed one against Douglas and Labour. So where is that now? So the meetings that they're having now is a waste of people's time. Those are the meetings that should have been held in cabinet. But we learned from the Deputy Prime Minister that he ain't gone cabinet for 2 months. And where we learned this? Not on WINNMedia, not on Freedom, not on ZIZ, which is the state-owned media house, not even on Facebook. We learned about it on a regional media house. So the people of Grenada are supposed to know that our Deputy Prime Minister ain't gone Parliament for 2 months before we. And we got the clip after because we didn't see it live. We even learned from an Antiguan media house, Observer Radio, big ups to them, that our deputy prime minister gave our prime minister a week to get his act together. He didn't come to you. He didn't come to me. Didn't even go to ZIZ to make this pronouncement. So that shows you the lack of respect for our country. You see, I read into things a little differently. They didn't respect us enough. They didn't trust us enough. Now, Mark Brantley was quoted as saying that the voice of the people is like the voice of God. And you should trust the people to decide what they want.
Will allow the people to decide no.
No, they're not going to allow the people to decide now. Because I don't see any one of them willing to give up their post, their perks, and their purse.
And that was highlighted by a caller here some time ago, where they were of the view that the reason why Team Unity will continue for the next 3 years is because the members would not want to give up their positions.
No, government money sweet you. Me not ask you, me tell you, government money sweet you. It's a never-ending flow of constant cash. It's like you working in entertainment. You got various salaries coming from here, there, and everywhere, and it's just a constant flow. And nobody gonna want to give up that so easy. Let them show us that they really love St. Kitts and Nevis and sacrifice something for us. It's all well and good to say, we want to sacrifice our country when you're in opposition. Because you have nothing to lose. But now that you have something to lose, show us where your metal really is. And until we get that, all that they're doing right now is just playing on people's emotions and trying to drum up support from their base. Because you look at what's playing out on social media. Pam and PLP people like they want to kill one another. On social media, you hear the pronouncements. Now, if you say you come to power and you want to get rid of the tribalism, you want to get rid of the victimization, well, how come now you're allowing your supporters to go at each other like this? How come? Dr. Howe is supposed to be the leader of this fraction.
But you know, Ike, as you say that, I think it was the Premier, Mark Brantley, who made a post on social media, and some of his supporters made a post as well, that there were other members of Team Unity that were seemingly being allowed to attack other members of his party.
Well, man, sorry for him. Because remember, these fake profiles ain't just that, you know.
They've been there for a very long time.
Good. But the plate only good when in front of you. When the plate passed down and somebody has got the food in front of them, and somebody is making use of the fork and knives, you know, good no more, especially when those fork and knives pointed back at you. So I'm sorry for him in that regard. But I'll give him a little 2 points for standing up and saying, well, look, your fraction over here cussing the hell out of me and Pam. What are you doing about it? The Prime Minister didn't get up and disassociate himself with it or ask for it to be stopped. None of them. All of them make use of these fake profiles to attack people personally when people have a grievance with what is going on. Dwyer get it? Every time Dwyer open him out, you see a comment pop up. People say, listen to Dwyer. But if you listen to him in 2013 up to 2015, how come you can't listen to him now? Dwyer is not saying anything different to what he was saying then. Not a word. It all points back to good governance, checks and balances for our public figures. Nothing has changed. But because some people now mouth so deep in the trough, like they accuse Douglas and he people of, nobody want to say nothing now. You want to hold on to it. My take is, I don't think we're going to get a snap election. Because none of them want to go back to the polls. Because they need each other. Before Dr. Harris joined with Pam, Pam couldn't make note one. Now you may say, how dare you? Pam is a big party, 56 years. And how much seat they had before Dr. Harris? Well, it was 2. 2. So for 20 years, licks from Labour. And then they joined with Dr. Harris. And they get 4. Right? Okay. Mark Brantley was in opposition. He come back with 3 now because of the Team Unity thing. We are going to St. Kitts. We are going to Bastia to bring back Nevis's fair share to Charlestown. So send all 3 of us so we could have a bigger say. And 7 years later, You get $400 million, but it still ain't enough because you ain't get the big piece of sugar cake, which is the what, 700 million it was, or a billion, out of the monies.
Doya,
Yes, sir.
can team unity be fixed?
Well, under God, nothing is impossible. But it's not something I would bet much on. Because even if they come with a united face, let me give you an example. Have you ever been to a funeral and you look in the box and you hear people say, Lord, his face look fresh, eh? You know what his next stop is? The graveyard.
Yeah.
The face look fresh, but that's a dead body, that's a dead man. As fresh as they would want to make their faces, I believe that arrangement is dead. Regardless of what they say. And Tim is not going to concede power. Ministry of Sustainable Development? No. Ministry of Finance? Definitely not. CBI? Definitely not. He's not going to put himself in a position where anybody has more power than him in there. In fact, he may want to remain in power until the Lord comes for him, or the people determine that his time has come in terms of his politics. And he doesn't want Mark to get what Mark is demanding, because if he does that, then Mark will be the victor in that battle, and Mark's victory will perhaps manifest itself in the political results when you have the island and federal elections coming out of Nevis. So there are a lot of battles that are going on, personal, personality, political, and so forth, that in my view, all of this renders a healing impossible to the extent that things can be impossible. Because I don't like to deal in absolutes, especially in politics. And I don't think they will convince anybody who is objective, that they are together. Now, there are people within PAM, for example, who have shifted over to PLP, and they know why. There are big people in PAM who don't want the boat to be rocked because they want to be in there for as long as they can be, and they know why. In the meanwhile, PAM ministers, including the Deputy Prime Minister, are clamoring that they're trying to get land for people but can't get because the Prime Minister said no land available. But those same people are going to him, the Prime Minister, and getting. They're trying to get people on PAP but can't get through because they say PAP is full, or whatever it is full. But people are getting, even a man who lives overseas, we are told, who is from number 7. Those manifestations of the distrust tell you that this thing is collapsed. But they tell you other things too, Mr. Cornelius. It tells you that the government, the administration, has its priorities distorted. I'm going to mention these until the Lord takes them out of my mouth. Giving people PAP is helping people who are in need. But the more people who need PAP, it means that there are more people who are dependent, more people who are under the poverty line. Is that logical? The more people who need PAP, it means the more poverty there is in the country.
Right.
Isn't that logical? The effort that the government should be making is to put people into prosperity and independence, economic and social and mental independence, so that they wean themselves off the politicians and they think for themselves. Ike thinks for himself. If you listen to Ike will say, look, Dwyer is a joker because of this. The next day he will say, Dwyer is a good man because of this. He hasn't changed his mind. He's giving an opinion on Dwyer in one situation and another opinion on Dwyer in another situation. That is how analytical minds work. You don't say, because I had this view 8 years ago, I have to have the same view. But the politicians do not want you to think, because they don't love poor people. They love people poor. They love people to be poor. So here you go. If you really love the people of the country, will you sign a contract with a Swiss company to build and own a solar power plant here, to sell solar energy to Kelec, which in turn will sell it to us, when we have enough money from the CBI program and we have kitchens and divisions who can invest? EK is a young businessman, you're a young professional, you could invest a $5, $10, $50, $20,000 and buy shares in that company, so that every month you're paying for your electricity, but every year you're getting a dividend check. So that's empowerment. That's what Marcus Garvey taught. Now, Marcus Garvey also taught, and the economists teach the same thing. The more money that leaks out of an economy, the weaker the economy is. And the weaker the economy is, the less likely people are to become prosperous. So that solar power plant is going to bleed over the next 25 years, over $1 billion out of our economy. That means our people dog eat their dinner, unless, and I'm hoping that the Labour administration says it, they will nationalize it and then corporatize it and turn it over to the people of the country. The second one is the prison. The government has signed a deal with the Chinese company for 4,000 citizenships to be issued to raise the money to build the prison. The 4,000 citizenships will come up to about 700 million plus, and they will issue more than 4,000 if they want to. The prison, the commissions, architectural services, material and so forth will not cost more than 150 million US. You remember, you make your application to the Chinese company, not the government, you know. And you pay the money to the Chinese company, not the government. So the government will own the prison, and our people maybe will get jobs in there and maybe go there as prisoners. The Chinese will build it. They will bring in 300 Chinese to get the work to build it. And most of the money, most of the 600 million US dollars will stay out of this economy. Now, a glorious and historic opportunity to enrich and empower the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. But this government has chosen to go in the opposite direction because they want more people on PAP. And they're fighting each other to get people on PAP. This is why I say that their priorities are distorted, Mr. Cornelius. And you have to look at that, in my view, within the context of the arguments, the quarrels they are having. Because while they are quarreling over these things, they are making some historic, not just mistakes, you know, but these are betrayals. These are betrayals of the people of this country. What you going to tell Ike's 2 sons and my grandchildren and yours that happened now, when they were fighting each other, they were still signing these deals for the Swiss people to get rich. And that Swiss company is smaller than TDC or Horsfords. And they've boasted on their website that they're going to make a lot of money out of the St. Kitts project. Now, I don't mind them making money, but I don't like the idea of people coming here and getting wealthy at the expense of our people, using resources that are within the confines of our nation. You can't do that in China. You can't do that in America. This is why I say that these people do not deserve to be in government. Let them fight all they want. And let me tell you one last thing here. You said it's unlikely to have an election because it's only 2 years. We had an election in 93, then we had one in 95. Okay, I was in the 2 elections. If you have to have an election, you have to have an election.
Well, I don't think we don't got that kind of unrest to have the election.
Well, you might not have that kind of unrest, but you will have that kind of stress in the country and in economic concerns. to drive you to that point. But I wouldn't rule out the unrest.
Right.
Not that I'm advocating for it, eh?
We have about 12 minutes before the headline news, so we'll take this short break, and we want to get some calls in before we take a break for the headline news. Let's take this break, and we will be right back.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is WIN FM.
Enjoy the convenience of getting all your documents in one place. At the TDC Copy and Print Center on 4th Street in Basse-Terre, we do just that. We offer document formatting, graphic design, and copy and print services. Our team of professionals truly understand all your needs, whether it be administrative, professional, academic, or personal. You bring it, we deliver it with quality every time. Visit the TDC Copy and Print Center today in the TDC Mall on 4th Street in Basse-Terre or call 465-2511. Your copy and print specialists are waiting to serve you.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Welcome back to Inside the News here on WIN FM 98.9, about 11 minutes to the hour. We'll take some calls now, and we'll wrap up this discussion the first hour at 12, and we'll continue thereafter. Let's take this first call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Devon. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Happy Easter to you and to all the listeners at home and abroad.
All right, same to you.
It's quite interesting listening to your panelists. What you have is two the same. Now, I agree with some of the things I said. I, for one, don't believe you need the World Bank. I mean, 'cause that can be done here, and you have the central bank here, so I agree with them with that. Now, I wish to correct something that Ike said about the PAC. Now, the PAC says you must use the auditor's report, and any information you need can be obtained from the accounting person in each department, which is the permanent secretary, who may assign an officer to answer you. Do you know that? Do you know that?
You're asking me if I know that?
Yes.
No, I wasn't aware, but thank you for that.
Yes. So now I understand. Well, Ike is a little more balanced, in the matter of it being fixed. I said before, people look at their own self-interest. Each party has more to lose than to gain. But the idea, because I am still waiting, every issue that is raised, I am waiting to hear Dr. Drew and the Labour Party say exactly what they plan to do about it. What are the plans they have about the fair share of NEBIS and the different issues, because unless those are discussed, we're going back to the same old thing.
All right.
All right, then.
Okay, thank you so much, caller, for your contribution. Some calls are coming in, but I'll give you guys the opportunity to respond, and I'll indicate whenever a call is coming in. Ike, Dwyer, what is your take on what the caller said?
No comment.
Okay.
Nothing to respond to, really. She made a point.
Same? All right. Okay, so we'll head back to the phone lines and take some more calls. Let's take this other call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Please turn off the radio. Turn off the radio.
Yes, I will. And good morning to Ike and Dwyer.
Good morning.
Now, I want to touch what Dwyer mentioned about those two foreign companies. I think he's mentioned about the prison, and the other one is escaping me right now.
The solar plant. The solar power plant.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, Dwyer, I hope our people are listening. Now, what is playing out before us with this political fray that is happening right now? I am hearing ministers like John L. Powell, Eugene Hamilton, going back on things they mentioned 2015. And this is sad. And our people are very gullible. Because what you have just shed light on, Dwyer, now, there are those who are in the nose. I like to use that word, in the nose. Like you yourself, Dwyer, you knew. I didn't until I hear it from you. And I was driving my car from town one day and I heard a commentary. And I said, wow, our people listen to what Dwyer is saying here. Because for me, our politicians, and I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, they are greedy dogs. And what is playing out before us is evident of it. And for politicians going back in 2015 saying what they have done, and, you know, it's almost like they're saying, well, it wasn't complete. And our people are swallowing up this foolishness, this misery that they're trying at us.
All right.
And our people are not waking up and paying attention. So, Dwyer, I want to, if you can elaborate some more on this. I mean, I don't know how much can you, because our people doesn't listen. Just like how we don't like to read. Because this is serious. This is so serious in this day of COVID. Dwyer, I was out of a job for 2 years. I just returned to work in December last year. And things has not improved for me. Now it's a start over for me with way little than what I was receiving before I lost my job. So when you mention what is taking place, if it is already been signed,
Yes, they have been signed.
What our people are doing when it comes to this with our politicians, signing these things without coming to us. I mean, shouldn't we have a say? Because if we are being quiet with these things and just accepting, then we need to throw these politicians to the door. We need to show them the door. Because they're not doing things for our benefit and for our future.
All right.
Thank you for hearing me.
Okay. Thank you, caller, so much for your contribution. Guys, we have about 5 minutes left before the headline news.
I want to join something here.
Sure, go ahead.
I think the people who are listening need to understand something clearly. And for me personally, hear me. I have a political preference. Everybody knows that. The party that I support, that is my political preference. But as a Kittian and a vision, I don't care who runs this country. I don't care who is in power. Just run the country properly.
Yeah.
That's it.
And once you run the country properly and you do the most that you can for the most people to elevate people from one point to the next, I don't care whether it's PAM, Labour, I don't care.
Amen.
I'm a hard-working individual. I have survived under all these governments. I have got victimized from all these political parties and their supporters. So I don't care. Look at healthcare. A young man dead, two who I know personally, dead because no oxygen was available for them. But yet still, you have these ministers here arguing back and forth about keeping a promise to make somebody the next prime minister. If Mark Bradley could have get the monies that he think he's supposed to get out of the CBI, you don't think that the Nevis would have got dialysis and Nevis would have been further along? But no, somebody holding back the money.
And as they hold back the money, Ikwe, we don't have the dialysis, we don't have the EKG machines, the tinning, the galvanized between the eye clinic and the foot clinic have more hole and galvanized in it. And people over at Black Rock yesterday flying kites.
Flying kites, celebrating.
It's
If
not right,
you
man.
get
It's
sick
not
today,
right.
me or you, we're going to have to go to our peers in the community to do fundraisers, to go overseas to seek medical attention.
The majority don't have health insurance.
Right. You go to the hospital, the customer service there is horrible. No disrespect to the nurses or anybody who works there, but this is what the general public is saying.
Yeah.
You heard it on a live yesterday. But yet still, who's supposed to be running the hospital, find time to dish out lawsuit, find time to be doing interviews and all kind of things. And you can't go up the hospital and get proper customer service. Who's supposed to be training the staff? This is the problems that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis, you know, and they affect the most vulnerable amongst us. And instead people see these things, what they're seeing, who want to be and who is seeking for an opportunity. I would love for these men to work out their difference. I would have loved for them to do exactly what they said they were going to do when they got in 2015, because saying it would have been the better for it. And they could have stayed here till forever and ever, amen, I don't care. Has no effect on me personally. So if you do what you're supposed to do when you go in government, change the laws, do this, do that. They said that Douglas, sell out, we patch your money. But a Swiss coming down here to harvest with son to sell it back to us and not in it for us.
There are some people, guys, that are of the view that what is happening now is having a toll on the country in terms of governance and things happening. And, you know, people are concerned about how ministries are operating and if really and truly people are benefiting how they're supposed to be benefiting. The small man, if they're making it in
But
life.
where's the vision? Where's our country going coming out of COVID? What is our economic plan? What is our next plan to further diversify our economy and put more people to work? We keep hearing the Prime Minister, we're going to put more people. How, partner? What innovations are you bringing? What new things are you introducing so that we can have more people working, so that you can have less and less people on the path, less and less people on the step? More small businesses rising so that they don't have to go to somebody to beg a money or to beg a contract here and there. So I don't have to go and seek support from the government to send my child off to college because I could be able to afford it. Where is the plan for that? So this is not just about party politics and who get in government and who get in government. It's how the country is being run by the people that are there. I can't go ask Dr. Jubo what's going on in government right now. He in government? And they're saying Dr. Joe can't win his seat up to now. So how the hell are you going to ask him? What he going to do when he get in if he can't win his seat? Are you saying so, not me? My focus and my questioning should not be to who out of government and who was in government. It's who in there now. They are the ones in position to make a serious change about what is happening. People don't understand that. Thank you.
Dwyer, we have 1 minute left.
Well,
Sorry
you
to
know,
take up so much time.
no, Ike, no, take up your time because you're making a lot of sense. Just to give an example, Ike spoke about, well, many things. You see this prison project, Mr. Cornelius, it can raise about $600 million for the government of the country. Okay? Out of that 600, they can build brand new hospitals. A couple of weeks ago, the EKG machines in the outpatients were not working. In not one, but more than one hospital in St. Kitts. Basic things. The dialysis units are not functioning properly. The health system is not properly positioned and people are losing their lives unnecessarily. Well, if you have these resources or the potential for these resources, you must put them to use to save lives and improve people's lives, quality of life and their health and so forth. You see this $600 million that I'm speaking about from the prison project? Many purposes, good purposes can be put to. One of them is you could give 5,000 people each a $20,000 to $25,000 up to that level. Grant, a development grant to get started in business, put them in a nursery to help them how to manage their resources and so forth. 5,000 people, you know what a difference that would make in this country? It would relieve people out of a lot of the burdens that they're in. And you still have nearly $500 million left for your hospitals, your water safety and security, food safety and security, because our farmers we must eat not only more local food, but more organic and wholesome and healthy food. And this government knows they're just as bright as we are. So you have to ask the question, why aren't they doing these things? And they're not doing them because, let's be brutal, they do not have the care of the poor people and of the people of the country that they should have as a caring government. That is as simple as it is.
Guys, you're out of time. We'll take this break for the headline news. Stick and stay. We'll be right back after around 12. to continue the conversation here on Inside the News. For those of you who just joined us, we have on the panel Dwyer Astefan, well-known social commentator, and the social commentator as well, and radio personality Maurice Ike Flanders. I am your host for today, Devon Cornelius. We'll take this short break and we will be right back. Stick and stay.
You found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and National Bank.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Did you know that National Bank offers very favorable terms and low interest rate to switch your home mortgage? Our in-house legal department will process your mortgage in a jiffy and free of cost. Switch your home mortgage now and get a peace of mind knowing that we are here for you. National Bank, always here.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International. By land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Dealing well with a local reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
With the Win Headline News, I am Kevon Brown.
And I am Yulana Weeks.
Making the headlines, 34-year-old Jamaican escapes police custody, wanted for immigration purposes.
Rise in fuel surcharge on Nevis. Premier Brantley calls for renewed push towards renewable energy.
Easter Monday tradition returns after 2 years. The 65th Basil Henderson Aquatic Sports Meet. Cuba continues to reject citizens of the country who have been deported from the U.S. Internationally, Shanghai is converting residential buildings into quarantine centers to house a mounting number of COVID-19 cases, but the move is sparking anger and protest from neighbors worried that they are being put at increased risk of infection. Now, the details. A national of Jamaica living in Molyneux has escaped police custody. According to the police, Jesse James, 34 years of age, was held for immigration purposes. James escaped police custody on April 14th and is being asked to present himself to the nearest police station. Anyone who has seen the Jamaican native or knows of his whereabouts is asked to contact the Tabernacle Police Station at 465-7227 or the nearest police station, or call the crime hotline at 707. James is 6 feet 2 inches tall, with a medium build, a dark complexion, black hair, and brown eyes.
The recent rise in the cost of oil on the global market is a contributing factor to the rise of fuel surcharge on electricity bills for consumers and businesses on the island of Nevis. The Nevis Electricity Company issued a statement on Wednesday, April 13, 2022, advising the general public that, quote, your electricity bills for April will reflect a moderate increase in the fuel surcharge. The increase is a direct result of the recent hikes in the price of oil on the global market and, by extension, our fuel costs. The statement added, quote, however, in an effort to alleviate the financial impact on you, our valued customers, we have decided not to bill the full fuel surcharge for the month. Therefore, the amount billed only reflects a portion of the actual fuel surcharge. NEVLEC remains committed to providing our valued customers with a reliable power supply at a reasonable price, end quote. Reacting to the statement via social media, some individuals raised concerns that the cost of electricity is rising, but wages are not, whilst others questioned the long-talked-about matter of renewable energy for Nevis. In an exclusive interview with WINNFM on Saturday morning, April 16, Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, commented on the increase in fuel surcharge, citing that the Russia-Ukraine war led to this.
Well, in the context of the fuel surcharge, I think all of our people would be aware of the surge in prices of oil and fuel on the world market, occasioned in part by the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the disruptions to supplies that has caused. As a result of that, naturally, our engines are powered by diesel. That is how we generate electricity throughout the Federation at this point. And so naturally, the costs of that have gone up.
Brantley added,
as a government in Nevis, we have met with NEVLEC and we have asked NEVLEC to do its best to cushion the impact of that. And NEVLEC has come up with a position that rather than implementing a fuel surcharge increase monthly, which could see significant changes to customers' bills, they are producing a rolling average, I think using a period of 6 months. And then even so, they're still implementing it in phases as opposed to a one-time implementation, which would cause tremendous trauma to our people in terms of the electricity bills.
Brantley suggested that the people be prudent in the consumption of energy. He added that, as a small island, there are factors outside of our control as it relates to energy resources, as we are dependent upon international forces for crude oil. The Premier also emphasized the fragility of the energy situation in St. Kitts and Nevis and how easily our economy is affected by the war. Premier Brantley emphasized the importance of renewable energy in the Federation, which could better prepare us for times of uncertainty. He said,
that underscores to me the need for us to move as speedily as we can to renewable energy and to ensure that we are insulated from these exogenous shocks that can cause so much harm to us. And it is in that vein that my government has continued its efforts at geothermal energy and seeking to advance that particular project.
The Premier further stated that the biggest issue for moving geothermal along is financing. Currently, the Nevis Island Administration is seeking financing through the Caribbean Development Bank in collaboration with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Brantley shared,
the Prime Minister is seized of that matter, and it is my expectation that we will shortly see some movement on this and that the people of Nevis and by extension the wider Federation, since we are anticipating the possibility of exporting energy to St. Kitts, that we can get relief.
A traditional Easter staple is back this weekend after a 2-year hiatus because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Basil Henderson Easter Monday Aquatic Sports Meet will take place on Monday, April 18th from 9 a.m. The 65th Aquatic Sports Meet will see many events including swimming races. The coordinator of the meet, Winston Zach Nisbet, spoke with Win briefly about the various races at the meet.
We have the swim races, which comprises the long distance swim, the long distance underwater dive, backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, freestyle swims.
Each race has 5 categories: 5 to 7 years old, 8 to 12 years old, 13 to 16 years old, 17 to 50-year-olds, and 50 plus.
Along with that, we have the ham, the usual ham, which projects over the sea, with well greased. That is one of the main attractions. There is also one in the sand, a metal pole planted in the sand in front of the crowd. And at the top of that, we have $350 on that pole up to the top. That was contributed by the Scenic Railway, and with the ham was by Rams.
According to the cultural preservationist, the meet is much anticipated since it has not been kept for 2 years.
The response has been overwhelming. Indeed, 2 years of the COVID, 2 years we could not have done anything. But this year, oh, what a transformation. The people it appears to me as if they were yearning for something of such magnitude.
The police, emergency medical technician services, and the Red Cross will be there to provide any emergency assistance if needed. Another event to be held this year is boxing, and Nisbet is encouraging the youths to participate.
The attraction we are going to be having this year, along with that, is the boxing. We are encouraging the youths to come and register your name, even on the day. You have to register your name because what we are trying to get is that most of these youths are getting in a lot of things that doesn't make any sense sometimes. So what we want them to do, if you have someone that you feel annoys you all the time as a youth, then you challenge them. You bring them down. We have gloves, we have pieces to go over your face so that you don't get damaged. And we'll have a lot of fun, just swapping licks inside there. And we have prizes for them as well.
The aquatic sports meet is hosted by the Basil Henderson 4-H organization, founded by the stalwart Basil Henderson. Henderson had a lot of interest in sports and was responsible for beginning village sporting activities in football, netball, cricket, and table tennis. In his sporting career, Henderson was a footballer and captained the Rivals Football Club and the St. Kitts and the Leeward Islands team. In 1951, Henderson organized the first Easter parade and the first aquatic sports meet on the Bayfront, and in 1957, he was responsible for launching the first carnival. The 65th Easter Monday Aquatic Sports Meet is sponsored by Courts, Builders Paradise, Uncle T's, and others.
I'm encouraging the general populace to come on out. We are going to have a big day of fun.
Nisbet ended. In regional news, Cuba continues to reject citizens of the country who have been deported from the U.S. The Virgin Islands Consortium has that report.
Since October last year, Havana has been saying no thanks to the United States of America, refusing to accept Cuban citizens who have been deported from the U.S. The American Immigration and Customs Enforcement says the U.S. is currently experiencing a surge of new migrants from Cuba in what has been described as arguably the largest exodus from the country since the Mariel crisis of the 1980s. Though there have been 20 voluntary repatriations to the island since the beginning of the 2022 fiscal year, ICE says the Cuban government has refused to accept any deportations either through commercial or charter flights. Unauthorized migrants began being deported back to Cuba in large numbers following the Obama administration's end to the so-called wet foot, dry foot policy, which allowed Cuban migrants to stay in the U.S. by claiming asylum at the border. Under President Obama, the U.S. and Cuban governments reached an agreement which provided for the immediate repatriation of any Cuban national who arrived in the U.S. through an unauthorized port of entry. As a result, deportations spiked between 2017 and 2019. However, that trend was interrupted by the disruption of international travel and border closures triggered by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the travel disruptions, the pandemic is believed to have contributed significantly to the substantial decline in the quality of life of a vast number of Cubans. Pandemic-fueled economic chaos, coupled with the brutal state repression of expressions of dissatisfaction and dissent in the population, is believed to be what is driving the latest wave of emigration, which includes roughly 46,000 Cubans who have shown up at the United States southern border. Cubans have been taking this route since last November, when the government of Nicaragua waived visa requirements for Cuban nationals to travel to the Central American country. Many Cubans who arrive in Nicaragua are now believed to be utilizing this new avenue to travel northwards through Mexico to arrive at the U.S. border. Meanwhile, Cuba is blaming the migrant exodus on the U.S., claiming that the country's repressive policies encourage such behavior. The island's foreign ministry recently said that Washington has failed to honor agreements to issue 20,000 immigrant visas annually and has hindered legal migratory practices by suspending consular services in Havana. The foreign ministry also alleged that the Biden administration had been pressuring Central American governments to impose transit visas on Cubans traveling to Nicaragua. It is currently unclear how the United States deals with people who have been ordered to be deported by a court, but who now will not be accepted by their home country.
We now bring you these international reports.
Desperate screams on the streets of Shanghai as residents protest the prospect of having COVID-19 isolation facilities so close to their home. In a video obtained by Reuters, people wearing hazmat suits with the word police on their back could be seen scuffling with other people outside a housing compound on Thursday. The owners of the compound said authorities had converted 5 of its vacant buildings into isolation facilities, and it had been advised a further 9 buildings would be converted. It said it had moved 39 tenants to rooms in other parts of the compound and had offered compensation to them. But still, locals are furious. They say they're worried about being put at increased risk of infection.
All of us here are residents who abide by the law. We want to do something for the country. We are willing to do something for the country. But now you want to place infected patients with high transmissibility rates less than 20 meters away from some residential areas. What do you want us, the common folk, to do?
Shanghai has become the epicenter of China's largest outbreak since the virus was first identified, recording more than 300,000 COVID infections since March. And while the Chinese public has been largely supportive of the country's zero-COVID policy, their patience seems to be wearing thin as the highly contagious Omicron variant emerges in China, triggering curbs that have brought food shortages, family separations, lost wages, and economic pain. In locked-down Shanghai, many streets are empty, with storefronts closed. Under China's zero-COVID policy, everyone who tests positive must quarantine at designated sites, and the neighbors are asked to isolate in their homes for 14 days. Some residents have expressed frustration on social media over the difficulties in getting food and poor conditions at central quarantine facilities. Footage provided to Reuters on Thursday by an occupant of a facility showed people crammed into what looked like an office building. The person who filmed the video, who declined to be identified, said there were at least 200 people there, including young children, adding there were no showers and just 4 shared toilets.
Twitter on Friday adopted a limited-duration shareholder rights plan to protect itself from billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk's $43 billion cash takeover offer. Musk on Thursday hinted at the possibility of a hostile bid in which he would bypass Twitter's board and put the offer directly to its shareholders. Under the plan, also known as a poison pill strategy, the company could flood the market with new shares if anyone acquires 15% or more of Twitter's stock without board approval. On Thursday, Musk took aim at Twitter, saying the social media company needs to be taken private to grow and to become a platform for free speech. And while Musk's bid may take a page out of Warren Buffett's take it or leave it playbook, investment bankers, investors, and analysts say he needs a blowout bid and more details in his financing for this strategy to work. And they said Musk has a track record of reversing his positions, a trait that clouds his aim to buy Twitter. Wedbush Securities analyst Daniel Ives said Musk's move would set in motion events that will likely see Twitter being sold one way or another.
If the board says no, as a fiduciary, they'll be eating lawsuits for breakfast. So this is going to force the board to do a strategic process, look for another bid. But this, in my opinion, is the current Twitter story with the clock striking midnight. One way or another, we believe the company is going to be sold.
On Friday, Thoma Bravo, a technology-focused private equity firm, informed Twitter that it is exploring the possibility of putting together a bid, people familiar with the matter said. Meanwhile, inside Twitter, a source told Reuters CEO Paraj Agrawal sought to reassure employees during an all-hands meeting on Thursday that the company was not being, quote, held hostage by news of Elon Musk's offer to buy the company. Still, it's not clear how much cash Musk has available for a Twitter bid, and he provided no details about his financing in a regulatory filing on Thursday. And while news of his bid thrilled his fans on social media, his offer sparked concerns among Tesla investors and analysts that the electric car maker could suffer as the chief executive becomes distracted by his takeover play and the possible sales of Tesla shares to fund the deal. Also, Tesla observers are worried about the prospect of Musk overseeing yet another company, in addition to SpaceX, brain chip startup Neuralink, and tunneling venture The Boring Company.
The Russian Ministry of Defense says the destroyed building was a Ukrainian weapons factory in the southwest outskirts of the capital, Kyiv. Moscow says the plant made anti-aircraft and anti-ship missiles. People living nearby say they heard at least 3 large explosions early Friday morning.
We parked the car and the 2 rockets hit at 1 a.m. I did not realize that there are 2 rockets coming in. But when I went out afterwards, I waited indoors for some time, fearing more shelling. We saw the 3rd one coming. It damaged the car, tore out the tires, hit the windows and walls. People suffered too. The walls fell out.
The attack came hours after Russia said its Black Sea Fleet flagship, the Moskva, had sunk while being towed back to port after a fire caused an explosion on board. The Ukrainian military said it was responsible, having targeted the vessel with Ukrainian-made Neptune missiles. People gathered at a memorial ceremony for the ship in the port city of Sevastopol in Russian-annexed Crimea. The Moskva was the largest Russian naval vessel to have sunk in action since World War II.
Even for those who have not been there, Moskva was a symbol for everyone, symbol of our power, our hope, the revival of the fleet in the 90s. It is a symbol of engineering and scientific achievements, force of our arms.
The Ukrainian army says it repelled Russian army advances on at least 2 towns in the east of the country. Russia has redirected its forces from Kyiv in an effort to seize more territory in the Donbass region. Volunteers help Ukrainian soldiers pack food to be distributed to some of the many thousands of people fleeing or those still living in the worst affected areas.
I stay here because it's my home, and we help people delivering food, chemistry, and our town just destroying. Voice not good. I don't know what to say. Okay. I want to move.
Drone footage shows destroyed residential buildings in Mariupol. The besieged port city on the Azov Sea has suffered 7 weeks of bombardment by Russian forces and pro-Russian separatists. repeated attempts at securing humanitarian corridors to rescue thousands of people trapped inside have failed. The mayor of the city estimates thousands of civilians may have been killed in the fighting. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense says Russia has for the first time used long-range bombers to attack the city.
Russian occupants keep carrying out aerial strikes on Mariupol. They use long-range bombers. The enemy's land forces are trying to capture the seaport.
The strike on what the Russian Defense Ministry describes as a weapons factory on the outskirts of Kiev is the first major strike by Russian forces on a target around the capital city since Russian forces left the area more than 2 weeks ago. Major military operations now, for the time being, have moved east, where there are increasing reports of an effort by the Russian military to close in around the strategically important city of Slavyansk. The UN says that more than 4.7 million people have fled the fighting, and with no indication of any de-escalation, that number is expected to rise. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera, Kiev.
You were listening to the WINNFM Headline News on 98.9. Our top stories were: 34-year-old Jamaican escapes police custody, wanted for immigration purposes.
Rise in fuel surcharge on Nevis. Premier Brantley calls for renewed push towards renewable energy.
Easter Monday tradition returns after 2 years. The 65th Basil Henderson Aquatic Sports Meet. Cuba continues to reject citizens of the country who have been deported from the U.S. Internationally, Shanghai is converting residential buildings into quarantine centers to house a mounting number of COVID-19 cases, but the move is sparking anger and protest from neighbors worried that they are being put at increased risk of infection. Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and National Bank.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Till you walk with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Dealey Walwyn, people you can trust.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoyed the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your national bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News here on 1FM 98.9. It is 12:34. The phone lines are open and we are taking your calls. We are going to continue the conversation for this afternoon on the developments in team unity and all that has been happening over the past few weeks, a bit over a month now. The public disagreement and discord and all the confusion that is happening right now in Team Unity. And of course, this has been confirmed by members of the coalition. PAM and CCM specifically have confirmed that all is not well, and some of the commitments that were made in the Charlestown Accord, an agreement that they signed prior to assuming office in 2015, have not been kept, have not been fulfilled. And so now they're telling us, the people, the electorate, that well, we're not confident with what's happening right now. We are unable to deliver on some of the promises that we wanted to deliver on. At the same time, I'm not sure if you guys are of this position, but it seems as if what is happening now are the alleged wrongdoings of Team Unity appears to be, or the Prime Minister appears to be the culprit of all that is happening now in Team Unity in terms of what is going wrong, where you're seeing other members are distancing themselves from all that is happening. Others are of the view that, well, no, you were part of the administration for the 7 years, and so if something did not work out, then you too should be a part of, or you should to take responsibility for that. What is your take on that, Ike?
I think all of them should bear the same consequences. And as I've said it before, where is their action to subvert or subvent all of these things that they said the Prime Minister is doing? You had a golden opportunity to move resolutions in the Parliament to check the powers of the Prime Minister. In the last address that the Prime Minister gave to the nation, you heard what he said? He's not going to allow the constitutional mandate of the office of the Prime Minister to be subverted in any way, shape or form. So if you wanted to check the powers of the Prime Minister, That is what you should have done from the onset of Parliament. They knew what they needed to do going into government, you know.
Mhm.
But you see, everybody was just happy to be in government. And they were hoping that by some stroke of luck, Dr. Harris would have been, you know, an honorable person to his words and the agreements that they made. But what they failed to understand is the Timothy Harris they were dealing with. You saw what he did to Labour. You saw it. You were there. You witnessed it. The bringing out of information, the this, the that, the going around and all the media houses who would give an ear to you, including Freedom. This is bad, Douglas, wicked, and wait. You saw what he did to that party that he was with for 18 years. He was in government with, he was in government with you, right?
Yeah.
Good, for 18 years. So he understands the ins and outs of how government works. They were supposed to go in there with the same mandate and mindset that they said they wanted to take the country forward in a different direction and begin to work by formulating the policies that would govern the conduct of people in public life. And they paid absolutely no attention to it.
All right.
None whatsoever. So all of them should go home.
There's a caller on the line, Ike. All right, so we'll take this call, right?
Sure.
Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Devon. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Hope you had a good lunch, you know. Now, it's quite interesting what Ike just said. Because when Dr. Harris left, Mr. Astafan was there with him, so he held the same views. He had the same views. Everybody had a high expectation. And as you said, or one of them said, if issues sprang up early, because from what I heard Mr. Richard say, in 2020, some members of the Team Unity were reluctant to allow Mr. Harris to continue. Right? I didn't even know that. And so people kept hoping. You see, sometimes, you know, I'll tell you this thing. Dr. Douglas was not a victim. He was never the victim in anything, and Dwyer could back it up, because Dwyer got his share. Dr. Douglas was never the victim of anything. He bred and raised Dr. Harris. And what he said and what he did, if you go back to what led to his leaving the party, was a legitimate cause. It was legitimate. And you get a thing of no confidence. Number one, you are a minority, and you still refuse to move. He was never, ever the victim. He was the perpetrator. And he encouraged it. Now, I agree with the statement made that they should have said something earlier. But, you know, people say, well, you don't want to mash up. You don't want to break up. But sometimes, even if you don't do it publicly, they should have brought in people, just like when Dr. Douglas and Mr. Harris was having their free. They brought in people from outside to mediate, right? So that mediator should have been brought in before. And it's still not too late for mediators. I know people are hoping that it mash up so that Labour could get in. But the truth is, Labour ain't changed. Because look at how they went on when Dr. Drew was elected. They're still carrying it on. So we're going to go from one mashup to another mashup?
But let me ask you this, though, caller. You're saying there are people that are hoping for it to mash up. Maybe it's already mash up, based on the comments that have been made by the partners in Team Unity.
Hello. When is it mash up? Answer me. When is it mash up? It has to be declared so.
All right. Okay, we want to take some more calls.
Freedom.
Okay, thank you so much, caller, for your contribution. We take some more calls at 466-0989-762-0989. It is about 50 minutes to the hour of 1. Guys, we'll continue the conversation right here on Inside the News. Team Unity, its developments, what is happening. Now, based on, even with that comment and some comments by other people on social media, that, well, if Team Unity is to call it a day, that would position the Labour Party to propel itself into government. Others have said that's not the point.
But Mr. Cornelius, that's not the issue here, you know.
Right.
The issue here is nothing to do with Labour, you know. Sean Richards said about our Prime Minister that he is deceptive, deceitful, greedy, disingenuous. The issues between them, the bridge is so wide, because that's what Sean Richards said in his last address. This conversation has nothing to do with Labour. You promised us something as a team unity government. Now the Prime Minister is also saying that there needs to be a code of conduct for cabinet members. All of a sudden, there needs to be a code of conduct. What he is in fact saying to me is that he fully well understands the behavior of his cabinet colleagues. And so if you're going to come after him and try to hold a candle of correction to him, then you must also come under the same light as that candle and conduct yourself properly. Sean said in the last town hall that he's strongly of the opinion that the Prime Minister is setting him up to look bad in the eyes of the public based on the incident at last time. What that they got to do with Labour and Dr. Joe? Sean said he ain't going to cabinet because his name was mentioned in a police report. And he ain't going back to cabinet until his name come off. Really?
That comment, which I've heard before, suggests to me that no matter how bad it is, the Labour Party should remain out of office. If you understand where I'm coming from.
So
no matter how bad it is.
So who really love this country?
I am not the one saying that it is bad. I'm not the one, making these announcements and pronouncements. I mean, come on, let's be fair here. It is coming from within Team Unity that they don't trust each other, that this is happening and that ain't happening and that ain't happening. So when I asked the question, maybe the thing don't mash up, I know what I meant. Because based on what have been said by the members in Team Unity, they have made it very clear that they do not trust each other.
There you go.
So the issue is not trying to advocate for one side and say, well, this thing ain't good, so let's try to go with this other person.
Anyway, going down that road is going to take us away from the focal point of our conversation, which is what's happening within Team Unity. We don't know how much money is in the CBI. We haven't had a report.
There's a caller on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Clearly?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. This conversation have absolutely nothing to do with the Labour, with the Prince. It's about Team Unity, of course. And my family say, they ain't march until they say they march. So we going to accept that?
Distractions.
Are we going to accept they march until they say it march?
Distractions, my lord.
Okay.
All right.
We go and listen. Give thanks to the information flowing.
All right, thank you, caller, so much. We're still taking your calls at 466-0989 or 762-0989. Doya, you've been silent for a while. I want to hear from you.
Sometimes your best contributions to a discussion are made when you say nothing.
Amen.
The point we're talking about is trust. And I'll make a simple point. if they do not trust each other, and they don't, am I correct?
Right.
Can anybody deny that these guys who are in the present administration do not trust each other? You can't deny that. They have said it, and they have acted it out. They do not trust each other. So if they do not trust each other, why should they expect or want the people of the country to trust them? Ike has said it, and the caller just mentioned it. Reference to the Labour Party is a red herring. It is totally irrelevant to this conversation. It is up to the people to decide if they will trust the Labour Party under its new leader and to what extent they will invest that trust. But that's not what we're talking about here. These guys are saying publicly, we do not trust each other. How they could come and tell you to trust them? Whether they decide to disband or whether they decide to hold together, they have said they don't trust each other. And it will take a multi-miracle, a multi-miracle for that to change. And is that distrust of each other that is causing the country to suffer? And some people do not think that the country is suffering. There are other issues they should be tackling. But when you're not going to cabinet, or if the cabinet is dysfunctional, the supply chain issue, and COVID, which already put up the cost of things and the cost of freight, and then the thing in Ukraine, which along with Russia, those are the two largest wheat producers in the world, and the cost of living going up, inflation. They should have already found mechanisms to ease the burden on the consumers. I've made recommendations. These are things they should be doing. Building a new hospital. Stop this foolish talk about building a school on the protected area up there in East Bastia. They are distracted by the other things. So the main things, good governance and all of that, is taking not just second place, but is not even on the stove to be cooked. It ain't even reached the stove yet. So my point is, I'll repeat it for the third time, but the second time, said it twice. If they don't trust each other, and they don't, the people shouldn't trust them.
Let's hit this call, Lloyd. There's a call on the line. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How you guys doing?
Good, thanks.
Okay, just because of the first call, I said I'd call it. Just to say this. People tend to come up with experiments as to what governance and what good governance should be. And part of our problem today, while this thing might not be fixed or might continue for a while, is that the persons purporting that we needed a change, and Harris and the unity suspension would be the best thing ever to make a change. Their problem is now that they're ashamed to admit that it has failed. And until such, we're going to continue to have these things happening, whether persons thinking somebody wanting labor or not. And we're going to make the same mistake over and over again. You know why? When you listen to this, you're hearing that 7 years shy or have passed, and nothing that they said that they were planning to do for fair share for all have been realized. But the agendas are. The Prime Minister has his agenda. He wants to stay in power until whenever, and that will not stop. They accused Dr. Douglas of not sharing with the minister when that was not true. And this government has shown from their own utterances that the Prime Minister is selfish. He is a leader which is about himself. I'm going to say this now. One of the signs that Mr. Harris was heading this way, I want you guys to visit the hospital in Molyneux. It was a place that he went to and said that when he looked up in the roof, he see how bad Labour was treating his constituency. When his constituency was getting everything it needed. But go and look for the sign that says that the hospital was fixed, refurbished by Timothy Harris, the new Prime Minister. Look at it. I'm not quoting the exact words. And you will see that back in 2015 and 2016, Mr. Harris wasn't thinking about the unity of the government, you know. He was thinking about him as the Prime Minister and not the whole unity. So, we expect after 7 years. It doesn't matter to me who is in power because I too share the love for a specific party. When things go wrong, if those persons before were able to say it was wrong, like Sylvine and others, say wrong now. Now go back and tell me about Dougie. And that is where we're going wrong. Have a good one, guys.
All right, let's take this other call. There's another call on the line. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. If you look at the statements by both the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, the most recent ones, one gets the impression that that is a really good, those are really good summaries of where we are at this current time, the bottom line, so to speak. It shows that there are intractable problems because it was clear, if it wasn't clear before, that Dr. Harris is definitely seeking a third or more terms. And he's not prepared to give Nevis more than tokenism. And similarly, all the other issues that might weaken him, he's not prepared to even consider those. Okay? And with these things evident, there's no way there can be reconciliation. And they may call it an accommodation or make people feel that things are back to normal. But I don't think people will be fooled or lulled into any sense of complacency that everything is going to be okay still. Can't happen. Okay? They have all disqualified each other, in my opinion, all the members of this current administration. Okay? They're in a circular firing squad where they're all throwing barbs at each other and accusing each other of all sorts of corruption and greediness and untrustworthiness. They obviously don't deserve to be in government. Okay? And so what do we do? Just from a point of getting to know what's really happening with our governance, what's happening in government, the figures that we're supposed to know, that should be publicly available. Okay, just from that point of view, we would never ever get to the bottom of what's really going on in government unless there's a change. Okay? And so, and I think that's where the Labour Party becomes relevant, in that they are the only credible alternative right now. Okay? We know that what currently obtains is not good. It's not good for the country, and therefore we have to look elsewhere. Right? And that's why I say change and keep changing until we get it right. All right? The real question right now, how long will that change take? Is it going to be 3 months or is it going to be 3 years? Okay? I think the sooner the better, because I don't see us going on like this with some deception or mockery that everything is hunky-dory, when in fact we know that it is not. It has not been for some time, and it's bad for the country. Okay, so the question is, when will we get that change? Okay, then.
All right, let's take this other call. Okay, we seem to have lost that call. You can call us back at 466-0989 or 762-0989. Guys, it is about 4 minutes to the hour of 1, and we're continuing our conversation right here on WINNFM 98.9 for today's edition of Inside the News. Let's hit this final call, and I'll get Dwyer and Ike to weigh in. Let's hit this call. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon again. Good afternoon to all the listeners at home and abroad if you just joined. Happy Easter. Happy Easter. Now, I am glad the last caller confirmed what I said, you know. The only alternative to unity is Labour. I mean, you don't need any, that isn't logical. Then I heard Mr. Astapan talking about like what can happen. And he mentioned the 1993, 1995, that event, 1993. This is a shame and a blot on the country. A shame and a blot. We have got, now I was telling somebody, I said, America dropped bombs on Japan, you know. America and the other countries fought against Germany. Who would have thought that America and Japan would have relationships? So nothing is impossible. I want all parties to get the act together. I will never condone, I don't condone wrong. I have nothing to gain. As Ike said, I don't get things under all the parties. So I don't have any. But, I mean, when you begin to say, oh, well, because I heard one talking about you must take to the streets. You have a history. The Labour Party has a history. Now let's talk about, and Mr. Astafan could back it up whether he want to or not. When in 2012, when Mr. Harris came out and Mr. Conda came out, Dr. Douglas said that since 2004 he did not trust his deputy. 2004. He didn't come out. It didn't come until 2008. If Mr. Harris did not come out, he would have been in there still. They even said, the same cabinet you're talking about, you know.
All right.
When the Labour held the cabinet, they said they waited until Mr. Conda and Mr. Harris went for lunch to have the real cabinet. So all of these squabble with us contentious people. So we're making a big, if Mr. Harris didn't come out, he would have been right in the Labour Party still.
All right, caller, thank you so much for your contribution to this program. Guys, it is 1 o'clock. We have about half an hour left before we wrap up today's discussion. Your take on the callers, the previous callers, and this one. Mr. Ike, do you have any contribution?
You know, it amazes me sometimes the way people deliberate over issues. Because the last caller fully well knows that a whole movement was mounted because, in their opinion then, the country was not going in the right direction. In their opinion, there was too much squabbling going on between the deputy and the prime minister. And so much things were going bad. The economy was bad. This was bad. This was not right. That was not right. This was not right. We needed a new direction. Nothing that is happening now ain't happened then. The only difference is then the last caller called for the whole thing to get mashed up. She wasn't calling back then for Douglas and Sam Conda and Timothy to sit down and work it out. She wasn't calling for resolution and forgiveness. She was saying, take them out. Dwyer was there so Dwyer could confirm it. She wanted Dwyer to confirm all kind of things. I hope she wanted Dwyer to confirm this as well. She joined the fray every single day to say, mash it up. Let's go in a different direction. Unity is the way. So now unity come. The deputy don't trust the prime minister. The prime minister don't trust the deputy. He don't trust none of them. But now we must have some kind of hope and, hope that they could sing Kumbaya and hold hands together and all kind of thing. Don't mash it up now because this is the party that she supports. And then you want to convince me and young people that you know the difference between right and wrong? If he was bad then, he bad now. You understand? Go back to the polls. When they had the impasse with emotional confidence, I said in uncertain terms on the radio, call emotion. Let the chips fall where they may. Let people decide which direction they want to go. Isn't that the basis of a true democracy?
Right.
Call the election. And he, him, and he, her. And what was his lot? He was voted out. Being put out of office is the ultimate price to pay for bad governance, for not having a unified cabinet, for not running the affairs of the country properly. You are voted out. And once you're voted out, that is your sentence. You don't go to jail to serve 2 years and then when you come out, you're still serving your 2 years. No, you pay for the crime that you commit. And that is what happened. Now you're trying to tell me that what is happening now doesn't deserve the people's voice or the people's vote to weigh in and which direction they want to go? They don't trust each other. They don't say it. I don't even think they like each other. Because you look at them in the pictures and you see nobody smile. It is clear. And we are the ones who are suffering. Healthcare is suffering. Education is suffering. The economy is suffering. The elders are suffering. You hear this lot of talk about what's happening in social security. How could you pay attention to these things and plan for the next 25 years if you can't even sit down in cabinet and work out something as simple as an agreement that you had before you go into cabinet, before you got into government? Back to the Charlestown Accord. The business of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis is not being properly looked after. Saying that you got the peace program, saying that you got the PAP, saying that you got the STEP. Those things are tokenism. It's mediocrity. Healthcare is in shambles. And in the meantime, man and man down board like a fly kite. Man and man talk about me love me party, sticky with me party. Let me paint this picture to you, Mr. Cornelius. Whether or not you think it's right, doesn't matter. Look at the facts and the stats. You want to hold on to your government, and in the meantime, you as a private citizen got to raise funds to seek medical attention because it's not available in your country. You don't have universal health care. You go up the hospital and you got to sit down 2 hours to wait before somebody will come and tend to you. The nurses right now mounting this lot of back and forth between them and the government. You go up the port, you got to buy back something from customs. You go to the grocery store, you went to buy a cream yesterday, it cost $50, you go back tomorrow, it cost $75. Nevlec in Nevis just raised the price of electricity. Who does that affect? The ordinary people. But the government cannot properly put things in place to run the country because what? All of them right now are engaged in a squabble over CBI money and who will be the next prime minister. Where are the nuts and bolts issues? The police need support. Look, a prisoner just escaped. How we get out of there? So we're going to proper train him, going to proper police, and now they drop a judge driver up and down a waste gas. I look at the same man. I see about 20 police vehicles last night standing up across by Newtown. Back and forth, looking for one man. You understand? And it's costing us money. And in the meantime, the squabbling about who's going to be the next prime minister, the squabbling over money, squabbling over this. And the affairs of the country is not being run properly. And you want to come here to talk about right and wrong? And what happened with Douglas back then 7 years ago? Well, how does that help us now in this situation today? You're just trying to distract people from what is happening now. They don't trust each other. They're at an impasse. And the country is suffering for it. We don't know where we're going. That's my take. Yeah.
Well, I hear some people speak about 1993 being a blot against this country. In 1993, there were general elections. The result was that the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party won 4 seats in St. Kitts, and the People's Action Movement won 4 seats in St. Kitts. It took a while before the CCM under Mr. Amory decided that they were not going to join any party. Tension was building in the country. The leader of the then government undertook at a meeting, I think clergymen were present, that they would have elections in 6 months' time. And I think even before that day ended, he reneged on his word and said that they had 5 years and they were going to do their 5-year term. That got the people very angry. And there was a public outburst. People reacted. Not a pretty thing. Thank goodness nobody was killed. It happened. 93. You had the Four Seasons meeting, and at the Four Seasons meeting it was agreed that elections would be held in 18 months, and elections were held. Those November elections were on the 29th of November 1993. So an election date was set for July the 3rd, I think it was, 1995. If the people of this country, Mr. Cornelius and Ike, thought that what had happened in 1993 was such a terrible blot on the country, how come the Labour Party won 7 of the 8 seats in the 95 election? Because the events of 93 and subsequent events only fortified the Labour Party's position in the minds and hearts of the voters of the country. Was 1935 a blot on the country? When there's a popular uprising against what the public feels en masse is an injustice, is that a blot? Or is the injustice the blot and it is being responded to by the people? Was 1967 a blot? Was it a blot in 1975 when Mr. Bradshaw got the mandate to take the country to independence? And the then opposition said, no, independence means if you have 2 TVs, Bradshaw will take away 1. Was it a blot when the sugar lands were acquired and valued independently, I think at $10 million? And Mr. Bradshaw offered the sugar owners $12 million or something like that. I could be wrong by $1 million or 2. And they refused. And people in influential positions, politically, hostile to the government, went to the sugar owners and told them, if you all want real money for your land, help us get elected the next time around. It so happens that in 1978, Mr. Bradshaw died, and in 79, Mr. Southwell died. The Labour Party was in a bit of a tailspin, and you had the coalition government in 1980. And the PAM NRP government paid, I think, $23 million when it had been valued at about 10. That extra $13 million, which may be considered to be robbery of the poor people of the country, was that a blot against the poor people of the country? Was the burning down of the Venezuelan embassy in 2014 and the OAS embassy, both at Fortlands, a blot? Was the burning down of the Molyneux School a few weeks ago a blot? Is that solar plant that this administration has signed to sell out the patrimony of the people of this country, is that a blot? What about the prison, which will cause us to lose $600 million or so to the people of this country, rather than Chinese people getting the money? Is that a blot? Is the fact that we have no working integrity in public life legislation, no freedom of information legislation, no proper contract and procurement administration legislation? Is that a blot against us? The fact that the hospital and our health system are in such a terrible shape, is that a blot against this country? Is it a blot that corruption is at its highest in this country, in history, as far as people who have been living for a long time can perceive? Is the administration's inability or failure or just determination not to really enrich and empower people, but to keep them on pap and step and poor. Is that a blot? Let's get real, man. We need to put things in perspective. We need to put things in perspective. The Ukrainians who are fighting off the Russian invaders, fighting for social justice and for the integrity of their country and their patrimony, that will go down as a blot? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Guys, we have a call on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon again. Now, Mr. Asafan, the matter with the land acquisition, the matter went to court, and the court said it was unconstitutional, that you do not just say what you're going to pay. So that what you gave was an error. In 1975, when the land was acquired, history will show and newspaper will show that both Mr. Bratcher and the leader of the PAM party were present. Before there was a socialist element within the Labour Party. I can tell you because I have read in the Spokesman articles written by Brian and Moore promoting socialism, which they tried. People's land were taken away so that a certain amount of socialism was being practiced. Now the idea with the blot. In 1993, as a guy confessed, it was not a people uprising, it was instigated. Instigated. So because the poor people poor, the poor before, the poor after.
Were you in the 93 uprising? You keep talking about Asagai. Were you in the uprising? Do you know the details of it? You were not. You had a good view from where?
You know,
you had a good view from where?
Upstate Development Bank.
You had a good view of the uprising from the Development Bank?
Upstate where the plan unit was.
Listen, you're telling your story.
You're
telling your story. You can fool people who don't know the history, okay? You can fool people who do not know the history. Yeah, you could.
It was orchestrated.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hold on. That's a blood.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a blood. Yeah.
People into it.
Okay, Colin, thank you so much for your contribution. We want to take some more calls.
He didn't mention that NRP joined with Labour to get a majority. No mention is made of that.
All right. Thank you so much, Colin, for your contribution. Guys, it is 50 minutes past the hour. We'll take a break to give a shout out to our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll continue Inside the News here on WINNFM 98.9. Let's take this quick break, and we will be right back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Caribbean tourism is dead in the water and wholly dependent on what's next in the United States, Europe, and Canada.
Global cases have now passed 13 million just 5 days after we hit the 12 million mark.
In Jamaica, residents of the parish of Hanover are in shock over the brutal slaying of 6 family members on Thursday night.
Chauvin had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck.
You found the sound. 98.9.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drug Store's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drug Store's curbside pickup service.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
It's 17 minutes past the hour of 1 here in the studios of 1FM 98.9, and I'm your host for today, Devon Cornelius. We have here on the panel today Dwyer Astefan and Morris E.K. Flanders, and we are commenting on the developments in Team Unity. Of course, we are taking your calls at 466-0989 or 762-0989. Of course, you guys know that Team Unity has been the center of attention right now in Caribbean politics, and many people are looking on, wanting to know what is going to happen. Can it be saved? Will they decide to go to the polls? And as I've said earlier, guys, you know, there are some persons that are saying, "Bye, I think we need to go to the polls and get this out of the way," where, you know, our leaders are saying we don't really trust each other. It's just like a marriage. The husband and the wife, they don't trust each other. And how can that marriage continue? How can they continue to run the household for the children to benefit and to have a good life? We have about 12 minutes or so left before we end today's edition of Inside the News. I want to continue the conversation this afternoon on the topic at hand, developments in Team Unity, and can it be saved? Should we go to the polls? Now, what happens if we are to go to the polls the next 3 months or 4 months, and the people were to, I don't want to say choose Team Unity again, because Team Unity is not a party. It is a coalition. But what happens if the people were to say, well, we want to repose our confidence in that of PLP with 2 seats. We want to give PAM a try again. We want to give CCM in Nevis a try again in terms of our federal election. We can't say that there will be a Team Unity again. So the makeup of the next federal government, I think many of you would say, is perhaps one of the most confusing things to try to put together right now. Your take on that?
Well, if what you say happens, or what you say might happen, does happen, I don't think PLP will be in the government. I think if CCM and PAM have sufficient seats, even if they don't, they will not include the PLP in their conversation.
Right.
There may be a coalition government after the next election, and it could well involve the Labour Party and any one or more of those other parties. And Timothy Harris is well aware of the dynamic going on in the political ether around him. And this is one of the reasons, one of many reasons, he has been building his brand, if you will, throughout St. Kitts and even trying to get it into Nevis, because the intention seems fairly obvious that he wants to run candidates in all of the seats in St. Kitts, which in itself is an in-your-face and blatant betrayal of the partnership which he so sacredly espoused with PAM. So I don't see, even if that happens, if his party wins a seat or 2, which I am doubtful will happen, I don't see him being in the next government. And this is something that he would be highly aware of, and something, of course, he wouldn't want to become a reality. And this is why, as I think the situation is finished, they're done, it is all the more reason for the other parties to try to carry the country to an election. Have a vote of no confidence. The Labour Party, I'm guessing, I can't speak for them, would vote in favor of the motion. The Prime Minister will either resign, in which case the Governor General can appoint a replacement, or he will resign within 3 days, or ask the Governor General to dissolve the Parliament, and then you have an election in 90 days, which would carry you into July. One of the problems with that is they might not want, because they like the music festival, they might not want the music festival to pop up in the middle of an election campaign. So they'll be thinking of things that, important as they are, might not be sufficiently important to delay an important event such as an election to help clear up this mess that's going on in the country. But I don't see, in such an arrangement, Mr. Cornelius, I don't see any room for the PLP. I don't see how PAM could embrace them again, and I don't see how CCM could embrace them, and I don't see Labour embracing, certainly, Timothy Harris. I don't see it.
Ike?
I would like to look at it from a very analytical standpoint. Not that way I didn't, but I would want to break it down even further. Sure. Right? If you look at constituency number 1, I think that's with Jeffrey and Miss Gray.
Miss Gray, yes.
Labour is going to win that. Okay? You're going to Central Bastille. If the People's Action Movement doesn't have the support and the motivation of the PLP behind it under a unity banner, which they had in the last 2 elections, I don't see my good friend John L. Powell coming out at number 2. So it's going to be a Labour seat. Right? You go to number 3. If you look at what happened in that constituency, some Labour people were not too keen on the performance of Congress Maynard. And then you had the PAM vote, because PLP said we're with PAM, so the PAM people had something to vote for. So, Ms. Nesbitt won. If you don't have the unity banner, and the PAM candidate isn't present in number 3, because who they're going to put in number 3 at this point in time? So which means the seat going back to Labour. That's 3 seats so far, right? You go down into number 4.
But before you continue, Peter Wickham said yesterday that it is highly likely that Labour will get 3 seats. So you have 3 already.
Highly likely, yeah. Highly likely.
We're making a confidence in what Peter Wickham said right now at this point in time. You understand? I live here. So I'm telling you. Just like how the last election happened, and in 2015, I called it without Peter Wickham, so I'm calling it now. Me want we got said.
All right.
With all respect. You go down into number 4, right? They had the same support from PLP. We all saw it. They came under the banner of Team Unity, and so people were re-energized and revigorated by that. Grant didn't win by hundreds of votes. How much votes he won by?
Won a couple of hundred, but the Labour people were not motivated.
They were not motivated. They were not too keen on the last candidate that was there. You now have a young man who is known, who is loved, and you can feel the energy coming out of that. So I am predicting that Labour going to also win number 4. How much seats that's so far?
4.
That's 4 seats. Sandy Point will go back with Sean Richards. So that's 1 for PAM so far. Number 6, if Dr. Douglas is running, that's Labour. How much that now? 5. Number 7, obviously, Dr. Harris. Not even Jesus could beat him over there, number 7. So it leaves now number 8. Number 8, we all know what happened during the last election. Now, with Dr. Juno being the leader, if he can continue to work like how he's been working so far, I see him pulling out that seat. He's going to get more votes in St. Peter's. I see Connery going with him this time, more than they did the last election. And based on what I'm hearing, if they don't have the kind of PLP support and unity support behind them going into 2025, Hamilton may very well lose his seat. So that will go to Dr. Joe. So how much seat that's so far for Labour? That's six seats for Labour.
That's the majority.
That's more than you need to form a government.
Right.
So PLP is outside again. Pam is outside. So even if Mark Brantley comes back down from Nevis with 3, it won't matter. It just won't matter. This is the way I see the election going if they don't go to an election under the Team Unity banner. And if they do go to the election under the Team Unity banner and they were able to come up with enough seats to form the government, Mark has his 3 and Pam have their 3 or 4. I don't see the CCM and the Pam having anything to do with Dr. Harris given what they have said so far. And if he does decide to join with them, they're going to make him Prime Minister. Because you heard Mark Brantley say at the PAM convention that they did not need him. So in 2025, if they go to an election under the Team Unity banner and there was some stroke of a luck, pull out enough seats, PLP will be on the outside, looking in, given all what they have said so far. He's not going to be the Prime Minister again. So it can go either way. Either way, Dr. Harris is going to find himself on the outside. And by nothing that anybody did, but by his own doing. Because in life, you can't continue to be a smart man and scheming and plotting. And you could make provisions for plan A and B. But the deliberate scheming and the plotting and the planning and the undermining, eventually going to catch up on you. Eventually, your clock going to run out and you're going to find yourself on the outside. And if it comes down to, let's say, a 93 situation where you had 4-4, I don't see Labour at all having anything to do with Dr. Harris and PLP.
But that is the perception out there.
No, don't worry about that.
No, that is part of a propaganda that is being
thing.
spread.
That
People are
started
saying
with Yaman.
it's called People's Labour Party.
Right.
Okay, and Timothy is the only person, he says, who can unite the Labour Party. Timothy is not a uniter, number one. And number two, Timothy will not be the person. The Labour Party is uniting itself. It has its challenges, but it is uniting itself. So this is to get people to feel comfortable with the fact that the party is called the People's Labour Party. And it's okay for you as a Labour supporter to transition over to them because it's a Labour. You're moving from Labour to Labour, so you're not really moving. That's part of the inducement to try to deceive you and to get you in there.
And that wasn't so 7 years ago. Remember Dr. Harris said, this is no unity. There ain't no more PAM, there ain't no more PLP, no more CCM. This is unity. So how come now he want us to go back to naming him a Labour Party? He who done says so much things about the Labour Party. But his Yemen put that out there. But that ain't a possibility because Dr. Drew has already said that he is not even considering any relationship at all based on principle with Dr. Harris. So that door done shut on him. Okay? So what you might find happening for the first time ever is that the two major parties on St. Kitts and Nevis, PAM and Labour, may have to, in their own interests and in the interest of St. Kitts and Nevis, in order to get the style of politics that Dr. Harris practices out of St. Kitts politics altogether, you may very well see a coalition between Labour and PAM.
Don't rule out anything. and one or both parties in Nevis. Or one or both parties in Nevis.
Wow.
Why not?
There you go.
Why not?
And you could even include the two parties in Nevis because if CCM gets one, CCM gets two, and NRP gets two, include them in the government, include them in the federal government.
2 and 1 or 1 and 2.
Include all of them in the government and leave Dr. Harris out in the cold with his style of politics by himself. But it will take real leadership and real mettle to make a move like that. Because in all of this political quandary that we find ourselves in? Who is at the center of it all?
And the man with the hoe.
Okay.
That's a very, very, very interesting analysis. And
it's not impossible.
Not at all.
It's not impossible.
Dr. Harris views Pam for years. He calls him a power-hungry despot. He said Pam people is the big thief, not the small thief. You got to know the history. And likewise, Pam views him too. But look what? All them went up on Greenlands together. Dwyer was there.
I was there.
If you felt the energy up on Greenlands, my lord, you don't want to be a unity.
Not to detract from the former leader of the Labour Party, because he also was very skillful in reaching out to people. The present leader of the Labour Party is a very amenable person. He prefers to build bridges than to destroy them. His manner, his approach is bridge building, consensus building, team building, which is what the country needs. And no rah-rah and ray-ray, no. This is a stable, in my view, and I'm not here to praise him, but my perception, I'll be honest, I find him to be a cool-headed, very wise, very well-intentioned young man. And he's not a little boy, he's a young man. He's a highly trained and highly respected professional. And I've seen him, how he's conducted himself towards becoming the leader of the Labour Party. And it was a difficult process, and it still has its challenges. But the guy is a champion, there's no doubt about it. And he can reach out and should reach out to everybody. He has ruled out Timothy Harris, but he has not ruled out anybody else. And remember, the 2015 election was essentially a referendum on Dougie. So who's to say that this one shouldn't be a referendum on Tim?
On Tim.
He has to go. He has to go. Sean says so, and Mark says so. Well, I ain't gonna disagree with them.
Because if shark come out the ocean and tell you that fish down there net, what you gonna believe? Okay then.
Oh boy, guys, we're out of time. I want to continue this conversation sometime in the future because I know there's lots more to talk about. Even this, what you've just shared there, very interesting. But now I'm thinking about it. It's not impossible.
It's not too far.
But we're out of time, and so let me say thank you guys so much for joining us here on today's edition of Inside the News. It was a very interesting conversation, and thank you for your calls and your participation. This has been another edition of Inside the News, and I've been your host for today, Devon Cornelius. And on the panel today was Maurice E.K. Flanders and Dwyer Astephen. You guys have a wonderful Saturday and enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
People